Welcome to Business Playmakers, the podcast that meets with innovators, trailblazers, and leaders to learn about their experience and what success really means. Hosted by entrepreneur and leadership coach Kyle Gorman.
Business Playmakers is presented by the Employer Blueprint. Employer Blueprint is dedicated to management and leadership development through one-on-one coaching and group seminars. You can find free resources from Employer Blueprint through YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And for more information, simply visit employerblueprint.com. Hello, this is your host, Kyle Gorman, and I'm pleased to introduce you to today's business playmaker, Bill Barron. Bill has had a distinguished career primarily in commercial real estate and in banking, but he has also found a lot of time to serve others through the course of his career and has received several awards and been recognized over the years. So just a few of those areas. The Book of Honor Award from the YMCA of the USA. He's served in the Stanford Law School Executive Education Directors College, recipient of the Milton F. Boulware Memorial Award, Chicago School of Business Directors Consortium, Harvard Business School Executive Education Compensation Committee. He served locally for his YMCA, for the Rotary Club, for Mentor Kids, and in his local church. But in all that Bill has done, the thing that you're going to hear most when you have an opportunity to talk to him is going to be about his faith and about his relationship with his wife, Jo. He's been married to her since 1973. They have 6 children that they have successfully raised. Bill is a multi-generation entrepreneur, and many of his kids have followed in those same footsteps. He's a hard worker, he's very driven, and yet has a passion for Christ and a passion for his family and relationships. I think you're really going to enjoy the conversation that I had the opportunity to have with Bill. I look forward to any feedback that you might have, and enjoy the show. Well, Bill Barron, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. I appreciate you, your willingness to kind of share your story and share your experiences and share with others. You've got a fairly diverse background, not only just professionally, but what's interesting is just how much you've done in community service and your involvement, and I think that that's great to just to take that approach that not only is it about how you build your career, but how you're able to leverage that to turn around and help others. So. As we jump right in here, just kind of tell us about your professional experience. Tell us a little about your story and how you got to where you are now.
Well, first of all, I started delivering papers when I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
And I did that for 4 years. And it really taught me a lot about being responsible, number one, having to get up. And of course, we didn't get it delivered, we got in trouble. So that was interesting. And then I had to collect, and then I had to pay the bill.
Oh, okay.
So back then you had to collect from each house and pay your bill monthly. So that was interesting, but it taught me how to do those basics.
Yeah.
And then after that, I went to work on a construction crew, my father's construction crew. He was a home builder in Owensboro. So I worked on a construction crew for about 6 years, every summer and vacation time off, Christmas or spring break, and that was interesting, and I really liked that. And then after that, of course, went to the University of Kentucky and graduated. I came back, went to work for New Homes Incorporated, selling new houses.
Okay.
And he gave me the choice, said, you want to go in the construction end of it, or would you like to go in the sales end of it? And I said, well, I think I'll try the sales end of it.
Yeah.
I know what the other construction end of it's like, even though I did like that. And so I sold homes for several years, and then I had a chance to buy into the company 20%. And so I did that, and then that evolved where I had a chance to buy in some more percentage of the company. And so eventually I became president of New Homes Incorporated. Yeah. Then we changed our names to Barron Homes Incorporated.
Okay.
And we continued to build houses and develop subdivisions.
Yeah.
And of course, you don't remember this because you're too young, but in the late 80s, the interest rates got to almost 21% prime rate.
Yeah.
And so the home building business was very cyclical, went up and down.
Right.
But we've been in it a long time, and we survived that time, but it was tough.
Yeah, yeah.
And so after that, and I decided that maybe I wanted to do something that took less debt, thus less risk.
Right.
And also my family life was changing. We had children by that time, and the other big thing that happened is I came to know Jesus Christ as my personal Savior, and that happened in 1986.
Yeah.
And shortly thereafter, I started reading through the Bible, and from cover to cover.
Yeah.
Which and I wanted to find out what it meant to be a Christian businessman.
Right.
And I started reading scriptures talked about the borrower becomes slave to the lender.
Sure.
And to not be unequally yoked. And so after studying that and studying some other books, I decided that for me, it was best that I get completely out of debt.
Yeah.
But I was heavily in debt.
Yeah.
So
Which is fairly normal in that industry.
It's almost unavoidable in that industry.
Right.
So I decided to do that, but that meant that I'd have to change my course some. And so I did that. I started brokering and selling and listing commercial real estate, and then toning down the amount of development that I did and home building that I did and so forth. And I was in business with my brother-in-law, and we on a walk to Emmaus actually. One weekend we were both working on the team, on the Emmaus team, and I approached him about dividing up our partnerships and so forth. And we were able to do that without a single cross word.
Wow.
And it was just the grace of the Lord that all happened that way.
Yeah.
Because he chose to do things somewhat differently than I did.
Right.
And neither one wrong, but
just different.
Just different. And so, and he's done very well. In fact, we're sitting here in his
We're
building.
sitting in one of his offices, that's right. Yeah.
So that's been really good.
That is good. That's kind of it in a nutshell. Okay. There's been other things along the way that I've had opportunities to be able to take advantage of. I'm thankful to my dad and others who helped me along the way. Yeah. So speaking of that, what kind of mentors have you had through the course of your career, and what are some things that you've learned from those people?
Yeah. Well, probably the best mentor I've ever had was my father, Jared Barron, and he started the home building company along with two other men years ago, back in the late 50s, and I just learned a whole lot from him. He actually graduated from college with a metallurgical engineering, a master's degree. And then he went into service, went to World War II, and came back. And of course, that was before I was born. But I learned from him, though, to work hard and to count the cost on things, and be sure to be. It's one thing to feel good about a certain transaction or feel good about a certain direction, but if you can't write it down on paper, and if it doesn't, the numbers don't work out on it, it's probably not a route you should go. And so he was very good at that, and he helped me along that way. And of course, he gave me the opportunity to work on a construction crew, and so those were great opportunities for me. And then there was another man named Bob Hoptree, who used to be a banker here in Owensboro. And back in 1983, he and I and I guess 11 other men got together, formed a holding company, a bank holding company.
Okay.
And we went looking for a bank to buy. And really the reason I hooked up with him and these other men too, but especially with him, he was a president of a bank here in Owensboro. And my dad also was an investor in that, but we thought so much of him in his ability in that field that we invested in him, really, because we really didn't have a bank at the time. So, but we went out and found one and bought it. It was under a cease and desist order, meaning it was about to be closed down. And we infused some money into the bank and was able to save it and bring it back to strength.
Yeah.
And now, over these many years, I'm still involved with that bank. Back then, it was $260 million bank, total assets, and now our bank is $4.5 billion in total assets.
Yeah.
So that's been a real good ride. But he taught me a lot.
Yeah.
Bob Hoptree did about the banking industry.
Right.
And that was great. And then another man that's been instrumental is Brian Crawl. And I met Brian at the YMCA.
Yeah.
He came to the YMCA here in Owensboro when I was on the board. He was age 26, and we hired him to be our CEO at the Y.
Wow.
And we were in dire straits at the time. And he came in as a young man, but had a very, very strong faith. And I remember the first board meeting he walked into, and we even though it's a YMCA, we'd never said a prayer in a board meeting or anything. And he walked in, he says, "My name's Brian Crawl." And he said, "If you don't mind, I'd like to open my first meeting here with a devotional and a prayer." And after the devotional and after the prayer, I looked up and I thought, the trajectory of the Y is about to change for the better. Yeah. And it really did. So I saw him make good decisions, and of course I was on the board at the time too, and deeply involved in that. And I learned a lot from him, even though he's 10 years younger than I am. Yeah. But he has been a spiritual mentor for me.
Yeah, that's really good. Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, through the course of your career, are there any pinnacle or peak moments, kind of professional wins that you look back on that are just exceptionally memorable for you? There's some real turning points for me. And I tell people, my kids, when I talk about it, it was actually defensive moves rather than offensive moves. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. And back when, the interest rates went so high so quick, and our home building business just came to a screeching halt. Yeah. But I had a construction crew out there that we needed to keep busy, or we'd have to lay them off. I didn't want to do that. Right. And I had bills to pay, and there wasn't any houses selling. So at that time, we looked for things to do. I looked for things to do. And so two things I did, and it was just out of pure defense, and that was I continued to build duplexes and lease them. Okay. So I was able to do that, and that kept the cash flow going. So. Right. And then I also built self-storage facilities during that period of time. Yeah. And I'd been at a home builders convention, and one of the seminars was diversity, how you diversify in the home building business. Right. And I went there, and this guy named Jim Nuppy, and he said, "I used to be in that home building business." Says, "No, nothing riskier in the home building business. So many decisions to make, colors, floor color, everything that you have to do." He said, "I'll tell you the things you can build. You don't need a toilet. You don't even need electricity, and people will rent them." What is that? And so I learned the concept of self-storage. Yeah. And there wasn't any in Owensboro, just maybe one or two buildings. Yeah. Wow. And so I came back, and I made a big loan, and I started building self-storage out on Salem Drive, out south of Owensboro. Yeah. To keep my crews going. Right. That loan on that building was 16%. Wow. And I thought I'd hit the jackpot. Yeah. Because the other rates were higher. Wow. And so that was an interesting thing. But I took that money, I built that self-storage. It did start to rent up. Then the interest rates started going down, so I could refinance and bring the interest down. But it kept my construction crews intact. Yeah. And so, but I still own those. Yeah. And that was back in 1979. So it was. It's been a good investment long term.
It's been a good long term investment, and when I purposed to get out of debt, that was one of the debts we targeted and pulled down. So those kind of things, and then the other thing, of course, is getting involved in the banking industry. Yeah. That's been good over the years.
Yeah. And so on the flip side of that, are there any valleys that you've experienced, any professional fails that you've been through Just those moments that I'm sure you've learned from, but that those are the ones that are going to stand out, that you tell your kids or you tell your grandkids about how maybe Grandpa kind of messed this one up, and hope you can learn from my mistakes.
Mm-hmm. I certainly have done that. I had one investment that I had was I'd bought the Midtown building down here along with two of my siblings, and I bought a little building next to it that was a restaurant.
Okay.
And so then I bought it from the guy that had run it for years, and he wanted to retire, so I bought it. So I thought, well, I'll be getting in the restaurant business, So I got in the restaurant business, and it was not the business for me, to say the least. It was like this big sucking sound out of my back pocket, the money's just flying out. And so it wasn't too long that we needed to shut that down.
Yeah.
There's been other things that I've done been really stupid.
Yeah.
And I hadn't said this much, but I wrote it down the other day. I'm going to send it to my children. But I got in a poker game one time, and I lost fairly heavy for me at the time, and I paid that debt off by deeding the winner half of a rental house that I had.
Oh, wow.
And that was not my proudest hour.
Yeah, that's definitely a lesson learned.
In fact, I never even told my wife about it until just the other day. And so, but that was stupid. It was really, and it's before I came to Christ and was trying to study on how to be a Christian businessman. Yeah. At that time, there wasn't a deal out there I didn't think I could do, and there probably wasn't a poker game out there I didn't think I could win at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is stupid.
Those are definitely some lessons learned. How, I guess as it stands today, how would you define success?
Well, I define it a lot different than I did when I was your age, probably.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, and definitely before I came to Christ. But I define success today as being able to have peace in the Lord, actually, and to be satisfied with what you have.
Yeah.
And so often I talk to young people, and they're just ate up with trying to figure out how they can do and make what somebody else is doing and making.
Right.
And they don't seem to have any satisfaction. And I was talking to a friend of mine this weekend, and he's a teacher. He's been in teaching for 10 years. He's an outstanding teacher.
Yeah.
He's renowned in his area for teaching. But yet he still has this dissatisfaction with the fact that he's a teacher, and some of his buddies that he went to school with are buying houses and flipping them, or making money in the stock market or whatever. Yeah. But and I just encouraged him that what he's doing way more important than what that is. Yeah. And storing treasures up on heaven. Storing treasures up on earth are just, like Scripture says, they're going to turn to rust and rot.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you had mentioned how it's sort of changed, how has that concept of success changed over the course of your career?
Well, when I was young, it was all about my balance sheet and how much money I could make, and all the material things that were out there, and I was focused on that, and my wife and I were both focused on that, and we actually were in competition with each other. She's a very bright and capable person, and we had put together a Century 21 Partners, which was a real estate company, and she was running it, and so we thought that was success. Okay, we had a real estate company, we had a home building company, we were building rental properties and doing this stuff. I was actually working 7 days a week, because I'd be in the model home on Sunday afternoon. Right. And I'd seen my dad do that for many years. Yeah. So I thought, okay, that's
the norm. That's what you got to do.
That's part of success, and it's what you got to do. Well, then when I came to the Lord and when I read the Scriptures through, man, we started making some huge changes. Yeah. And one of the first ones was to sell out of that Century 21 Partners and have Joe come home, my wife come home to our children. And we were in our early to mid 30s at that time, and we actually had 4 children after that.
Oh, wow.
We had our last child at age 41.
Yeah.
And
you have, is it 7 total?
we had 6.
6 total? Yeah.
We have 11 grandkids.
Yeah.
So all those kind of things, they started to change at that point.
Yeah.
And I tell people that I had stuff from here to here. I mean, I had a broad range of assets, so to speak.
Right.
But the equity was
So minor.
pencil thin all down through there.
Yeah.
And when I read the scripture and I realized that getting out of debt would be the best for me, and to prune different things out of that. So I have a lot less. I had equity.
Right.
Well, 100% equity after I got the debt paid off.
Right.
And I had time. I had time for my family.
Yeah.
And I had time for my wife.
Yeah.
And I had time to help people. And to do some volunteer work. And that, I believe, was more honoring to the Lord than the other way around. So when I see the word success, I think more of being able to live a life that's honoring to the Lord. That is success for me.
Yeah.
And so that's what we've tried to do.
Yeah. And along those lines, are there any specific keys that you can pinpoint or metrics that you've used along the way to help not only define success, but then to kind of stay on course with that?
That's an interesting. I constantly try to read and figure out the best way to put together that type of metrics. Okay, because I want to be able to be generous, and I want to make sure that the assets or the money or the net worth do not become a god. And the way to do that is to give it away, actually, and hold loose to it. And so that's what we tried to do. One of the books that I'm reading right now that we got through C12 is God and Money.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that's written by 2 young men that have come out of Harvard.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
And they're millennials. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, that's right.
Always get it wrong. But they're millennials, and they're coming out, and they're young, and they're trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
But they're also Christians.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and they have, some of them have school debt, and they're saying what's important.
All these real life things that people are dealing with.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Good. So what do the next 10 years look like professionally for you?
That's a good question. I'm 67 years old, okay? Yeah. So that would put me at 77. And, Lord willing that my health keeps up and I keep my mind sharp, the Lord allows me that, then, I can see myself continuing to manage the properties that we have and maybe add some more, but more than anything else, to be able to steward what the Lord's allowed us to have, and to be able to invest in ministries that we'd like to see what the Lord has to spread the gospel and so forth. Yeah. And so that's probably it. I don't see myself trying to start businesses or add on things like that.
Yeah. And I know we've had conversations around this, but what does the concept of retirement look like for you?
Well, I don't see the concept of retirement in the scripture, right? And I know people get older and they can't do what they used to do. Yeah, I understand that, and so the Lord brings them, slows them down in that regard. Yeah. But there's always, I think, things for people to do, and the concept of retirement, I think, is a blight on our society. Yeah. Quite frankly, there's a lot of people that have so much to offer, just go go sit down or go play golf or move to Florida or do the things and just kind of separate themselves from what their God-given abilities are.
Yeah.
I don't see that being good.
Yeah. So if as you walk out of here this afternoon, you get a phone call and someone says, "Hey, we just found out you just won $1 million. What do you do with that?"
I give it away immediately, and I don't have any qualms about saying that. I mean, that would mean nothing to me other than the fact that we could put it to kingdom work.
Yeah.
And not that that's the right answer for everybody.
Sure.
But that's my answer.
Yeah. That's good. I've shared with a couple of other people. I've been pleasantly surprised at how many people, as we talk and I ask that question, plan to do just things like that. Have thoughts of giving it away and what they can do good with it. And when they've realized, I'm kind of comfortable where I am. So if I've got this opportunity, how can I be creative to figure out a great way to use this money to help other people? It's been a pleasant surprise for me to hear how many people really think along those lines and want to find ways to get rid of it and help somebody else with it. So let's migrate a little bit here into how we help others as they are trying to define their concept of success, or as they're trying to look at what personality traits they need to think about and see and work on within themselves. So first, just on that personality side, are there any characteristics of people that you've worked with in the past, whether it be coworkers or peers or people that have worked for you in your companies, that you just gravitate towards? You appreciate these personality traits. These are things that you want to be around that kind of give you energy. Are there any personality traits like that you can think of that really drive you?
Yeah. Well, I can think of certain men that I have great respect for who are do very well in business.
Yeah.
And to the ones that I think really do it correct, they are selfless and they're generous and they look at what's best for others.
Yeah.
And not just try to figure out what's best for them. And there's people that build up a lot of assets by looking at just what's best for them.
Right.
And are kind of rough to do business with. And I know people that have won a lot of awards, and Joe and I won a lot of awards really way back when, and but our lives were kind of in shambles otherwise.
Yeah.
Business-wise, it really looked good, win awards, you go home, things are in shambles. And that is terrible. And, we all know people that have done just tremendous in business, but yet their personal life has got just all kinds of baggage laying around behind it.
Yeah.
And so that's not good at all. Did I answer the question?
Yeah. So, so that kind of flows right into the follow-up to that, which is, what are some personality characteristics that you find just toxic, that you don't want to be around and that you can't work with?
Well, I find these personality traits in myself, even probably especially the toxic part. There's times when I just really get in the flesh, and when I realize that's happening, then I got to stop and repent of it. But those personality, I mean, we all have to do business at times with people that are just so tough. Now, I do appreciate the fact that people should do a good job, okay? And when I do business with people, I expect them to do a good job.
Right.
And they should expect me to do a good job, right?
Yeah.
And so that's mutual. Yeah. And sometimes you have to not necessarily be rigid, but be direct about that. And but hopefully you're calling out the best in people in a way that's graceful.
Right.
And so, I just always want to do business with people that do what they say, and also that are generous. So, there's people I do business with that I have so much respect for, and we might see a common need, or they might see a need, and I have so much respect for them. If they call me up and they say, Bill, we need to help this person over here, I would just immediately do it. Okay? I wouldn't hardly ask any questions because I appreciate and trust their judgment, and vice versa. And some of the people that we're in C12 with exactly that way.
When you know a person's character and you really know what they believe and stand for.
That's right.
Do you have any resources, whether it be books or authors, speakers, that you have found along the way that have helped you that you might recommend to other people?
Yes, I brought a few of them here. One is the Treasure Principle by Randy Alcorn, and that's a small man-sized book.
It's a quick read.
Quick read, but that's very good about the way God thinks about what treasure really is, and that's what we're talking about here. The other one's God and Money. I'm reading that right now. I'm about 2/3 through it. I think it's very good. And it talks about quantifying things and puts you on metrics. Okay, how much is enough for me to live off of? And then when you get there, maybe you stop there and you put the rest towards God's work. Right. And then a couple of books that have been written by Wayne Grudem. One is Politics According to the Bible.
That looks like a very long read.
It's really not as bad as you think. I've read this about 3/4 through, and I used it for a reference book. Okay, but I did read it through, and it's 3/4 through. But it's very, very good, and it'll give you a basis. It gives you a way of thinking through political things biblically. And that's very good. And then he's written another book. It's called The Nations. I think it's called The Nations. Poverty in the Nations. Okay. And he wrote that with an economist, and I don't remember the economist's name. But what they did is they took a lot of different nations and talked about how they're politically set up and then how they're functioning. And so often, there's crime and corruption and all kinds of stuff, and those countries just never do thrive. Never thrive. And but our country, thankfully, was set up on biblical principles, and that's why it's lasted for over 200 years. But it's a very good read.
Well, Bill, before we close out here, do you have any other advice that you might give to professionals out there that are striving for success and what success is to them?
Well, the first thing I would say to them, for them, read the Bible from cover to cover. Okay? And read it with doing business in mind. Okay? And then to get books like this and read it. C12 is a great resource, which is a group of Christian business people, business owners that meet once a month and actually go over curriculum. And that's been written. That's outstanding. And especially for small business people, this gives them a round table that can be kind of like a board of directors. And once a year we do a core report, as you know. And it provides information to everybody around the table about your business. Okay. It's kind of like going in front of the accountant, or it's kind of like going in front of a bank board to get a loan. You really lay it all out there, and it's great to have other people drill down on that some. And, that are like-minded. That's how you and I met, of course. And I've had a couple of people on the show that have been members of C12, and for those out there that are questioning about something like that, certainly you can find some great resources. But it is a great way for oftentimes as business owners, the old adage of it being lonely at the top. There's some truth to that. That you don't know who to go to. There are only certain people you can talk to, but just some things that. You can't go to your peers or employees. You almost have to go to another business owner. Mm-hmm. But then to do that with someone that you can trust, and someone that has similar
mindset and similar visions and goals, and a group like C12 allows that opportunity to be able to go to like-minded people, but that have been through these experiences and understand that same world. And it's a unique group just for that reason alone. And then to be able to do so with biblical principles for those that are trying to run their business in that way. So,
I call them my foxhole buddies because they're literally, that they have your back.
Yeah. It's been a tremendous group for me and for our business. Well, Bill, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on and taking some time. I know you're busy. I appreciate you taking the time to come join us on the show today. And I feel certain that people are able to learn a lot from your experience and from what you've been able to do. And so thank you so much for sharing.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for checking out today's Business Playmaker. Links to the resources discussed in today's episode are available in the show notes. For more information and resources from your host, you can visit him at www.kylegorman.com. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast for the latest episodes. And until next time, make it a great day.